It's time for another news here on the Bernstein and Goff Show. We're live out here at Scoreboards, 1100 Douglas Road in Oswego, courtesy of Bud Light. The Bud Light is flowing. We're getting ready to give away these Bulls, Cavs tickets with a parking pass. Somebody text actually saying that we should be telling people that we're giving a parking pass away and you can go to the Bulls Cavs game as well. But no. You can see LeBron James play against Justin Holiday just as good as any other the 12,000 or 13,000 people that'll be at the UC. But that's not why you called. Dan, I'm just going to go straight for it. Take this how you want, ladies and gentlemen. This is from Fox 32 Chicago. Police are warning Southside residents about a dozen armed robberies that happened in the last 2 months in the West Chesterfield, Chatham, and Burnside neighborhoods. The robbers approached their victims with guns or used force to demand their property, according to a community alert from Chicago police. I hope these people are apprehended.
I need a description. I want to know what I'm on the lookout for.
Okay. Now, they give the times that these robberies happen. Apparently, these robberies are happening like every 4 hours for a 2 or 3 day period, and then they go into hibernation. They come back out for a couple of weeks later. So these are dudes who are going on these robbing sprees in the Chatham, Burnside, and West Chesterfield neighborhood. Now, when you send that APB out, or when you put people on the lookout for the crimes that are in their neighborhoods or in their area, you want to be as specific as possible. Right?
Yes. Tell me exactly for what I must be on the lookout.
And I got family in that area, so when I call them tonight, I will be telling them exactly what's here. It says the robbers were described as 1 to 4 black males between the ages of 15 and 40. They were 5'2" to 6'3", between 110 and 200 pounds.
Got it.
And had various hairstyles and complexions.
A lot of Jasons.
So, ladies and gentlemen, what this is telling me is that every black man in the West Chesterfield, Burnside, and Chatham neighborhoods should stay their asses in the house until this blows over.
How do you let that get on any kind of official release to release to the news media as any kind of official description? Just say at this point descriptions were unavailable.
Right.
Come on.
The two young brothers right here who are having tater tots are suspects. Marshawn is one. I am one. The brother up top, Dad, you might be over 200 pounds, but I'm just saying you've earned it. You've earned it. I am too, but I'm just saying. Pretty much 65% of the black men walking around this neighborhood are up for suspicion, and I'm sure I don't even want to look at the text messages right now because I'm sure a lot of them are agreeing, and they all have the 815 area code behind them. So just stay.
Aren't we in it?
Oh yeah, I'm fine. I know where I'm at. I'm good. I came prepared.
No,
just
we're
stay.
not. Okay.
Just stay in your house, brothers, this Thanksgiving weekend because you are a suspect more so than usual.
A new statue at a Catholic school in Adelaide, Australia, has been covered up and will be remodeled over issues with it being potentially suggestive. Now, I have tweeted out the picture. If you want to see this photo, I will describe it momentarily.
He showed me this picture, and I saw it for the first time.
He thought it was a bit.
As soon as I sat down today.
Yeah, he thought it was.
I did not believe it was real.
It's real, and it has since been covered up and will be redesigned. But if you go to @Dan_Bernstein, and I'm sure that Shep is going to tweet it out at Bernstein and Goff too.
It's awful.
Okay.
It's awful.
The statue of St. Martin de Porres.
These guys over here are looking at it right now.
At Blackfriars Priory was unveiled recently.
How do you do that?
And depicts the saint handing a loaf of bread to a young boy.
Everyone in the bar is looking at their phones right now.
Everyone's looking at their phones right now. However, the unfortunate placement of the bread
looks like he's handing him something else.
Which is exactly where you think it is, and it is a particularly oblong. It's not a slice of bread.
Yes, it's a baguette.
It's a baguette.
Yes, it's a
and all the way.
I'll just say,
Conqueror. Hey, St. Martin, congratulations to you, because that is the Juan Uribe of sainthood right there.
Yes. It looks like a baby's arm holding an apple.
Yeah. Thank you, Saint Uribe.
Jesus.
So it has.
Why do you go into the priesthood if you've got that? You
It
know
has
what I mean?
raised other connotations. The school has apologized for any concerns the design may have caused. So the principal of the school says concept plans for the statue, which was produced by a sculptor in Vietnam, were viewed and approved by the school's executive team in May.
They saw nothing wrong with this.
But upon arrival, the three-dimensional statue was deemed by the executive to be potentially suggestive. As a consequence, the statue was immediately covered, and a local sculptor has been commissioned to redesign it.
And if you don't have a phone in front of you, you're in your cube, or you're driving right now.
Yeah.
You can tell from the laughter. It looks like a grown man handing his wang to a little boy.
And to the little boy who is bending a knee
Yes.
in supplication
Yes.
and holding his hand
Yes.
directly under the bread.
Yeah. It's kind of what religion wants to stay away from these days.
Yeah, it's all too true.
Oh, no. Wait a minute. It was a real depiction? All right. Next story. What happened to this show? All right. Yeah, I mean, there's no two ways about it.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, you know. Like, imagine having to have that conversation. All right. This from Gizmodo.com. 30 years later, the Max Headroom TV hackers remain at large. Now, for my old heads in the room and the people that are listening, for 25 seconds in 1987, in the middle of a WGN-TV anchor, Dan Roan, our guy Dan Roan, sportscast, thousands of Chicagoans' feeds were replaced with a low analog whine and the eerie image of a masked man nodding over and over as if in a state of mania. Quote, "If you're wondering what's happened, so am I," Roan said.
There was an actual effective broadcast piracy that took place 30 years ago on two stations.
Yes, and it also 9:14 p.m. Central Standard Time today marks the 30 years since one of the most unusual hacks in history, the Max Headroom signal intrusion. One of them wearing a mask of fictional Al TV host, a new Coke spokesperson, Max Headroom. The pranksters hijacked the two stations that November evening. First, they did WGN TV, and then 2 hours later, an even more memorable takeover of WTTW during a broadcast of Doctor Who. What made the second incident stand out? Besides seizing WTTW's airwaves for nearly 3 times as long as WGN TV's, the hackers had successfully broadcast audio and was creepy enough to match the unnerving visuals. The heavily distorted signal, repeated moans, and nauseous swaying of the background, giving the impression that the actor was in pain, agonizingly trapped inside the rogue signal. If the effect was to craft something impenetrable and frightening, they most definitely succeeded. I remember this as a kid only because the next day MTV, I believe, picked it up and ran it on one of their news specials like, this is what happened in Chicago. And it frightened the hell out of me, so much so that, do you remember Mac Moon?
Mac Moon, I do not.
The McDonald's.
Yes! Mac Tonight.
Mac Tonight. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
And he had the
singing
half
Mac
moon
for
head.
Life. Yeah.
I remember telling my parents that I did not want to eat McDonald's anymore because the guy who broke into WGN and WTTW
Reminded you
was
of
that
him.
guy. I was so scared. I didn't eat a Happy Meal for a couple of years because of this. 30 years ago tonight, and they still haven't caught the guys who did it. Just a little piece of Chicago and TV history for you.
This from OnMilwaukee.com. The Packers were routed by the Ravens on Sunday, an embarrassing home loss in which they scored no points. The 6-sack, 5-turnover ordeal was the first time Green Bay had been shut out since 2006. But fans at one local Wisconsin bar at least got to wear the thickest of beer goggles while watching the ugly, mistake-filled affair. The Bavarian Beer House in Glendale offers free beer on game days until the Packers score. Uh-oh.
Oh, yeah.
A promotion that with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback probably wouldn't be too uneconomical, but last week as Brett Hundley tossed out interceptions, Devontae Mays fumbled the ball around, and Mike McCarthy provided no fixes for his impotent offense, the free suds just kept flowing. This is GM Scott Bell of the Bavarian Beer House. And looking at the pictures here, this is a genuine Bavarian beer house. This is like you expect a putsch to occur at some point here. He says they served free brews for the entire game, nearly 3 to 5 hours, and estimated that they gave away between 275 and 300 cups of beer. He said, typically, historically, we've been done serving free beer by the middle of the first quarter, but Sunday's game didn't work out that way. He said it was not quite expected that it would go the whole entire game. And they said it was fun, said though many people returning to the bar for more drafts, especially as the drought continued, actually apologized. Oh, sorry there, eh, for taking advantage of the offer and hoped the Packers would get some points.
Yeah, at some point, you just got to say we can't serve you anymore, I guess. All right, Dan, do you know how old Manute Bol was when he was in the NBA?
How old he was?
Yeah. Like, what do you think when he retired, how old he was?
I would say he was in the NBA during his mid to late 20s.
All right. Bol, his son.
His son, Bol.
Yeah, is a 5-star high school recruit, and he recently committed to the University of Oregon. By the way, I can't wait to see the contrast of Bol's skin and the highlighted uniforms. I cannot wait to see that. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be like an HD dream.
A dark-skinned
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. This is from CBS.
Also a suspect in Chicago.
Oh, no doubt. Yes. Bol has been committing armed robberies for the last couple of weeks. He fits the description. He will be arrested very soon. This is from Jack Maloney, though. With the Bol family in the news, former Cleveland State coach Kevin Mackey gave an interview about his first experiences with Manute Bol back in the 80s. Listen to this, dude. Quote, I gave him his birthday because they didn't know how old he was. Mackey, a scout now with the Indiana Pacers, told Zag's blog, every athletic door is open at 19. Every athletic door is closed when you're 35. He was probably 40 or 50 years old when he was playing in the NBA.
No.
Bol had no idea of his age, and the kid who came over with him didn't know how old he was as well. No one knew how old he was. The immigration people were in the office, and they thought it was great. They loved it, and they were big fans of the Cleveland State. They used to come to all of our games. They wanted to cover themselves because Manute was starting to get so much publicity. His picture was in the paper. He was on the 6 o'clock news because he was such a different-looking guy than everyone else. And that time, no one had ever seen anything like him. So at that point, Mackey worked with the local immigration office to come up with a birthday for Manute Bol, October 16th, 1962. He said, quote, it was in October. I wanted to make it after September 1st. I wanted to make sure he was young enough because he didn't have an age. I think he was in his 40s. I really do, but there was no way of ever really knowing. Now, all of this makes for a compelling tale, and it's quite interesting to hear Mackey tell of making up Bol's birth date. However, his claim that Bol could have been possibly 50 years old when he was playing in the NBA sounds like an exaggeration. There's certainly the possibility that Bol was older than the 1962 birth date that Mackey chose for him, but just consider this. Bol's last season in the NBA was 94-95, just 9 years after he arrived from Sudan. Thus, for him to have turned 50 even in his last season in the league, he would have already had to have been 40 coming over here.
Look, just for the invocation of Kevin Mackey, you had me at that because I spent some time with Kevin.
Oh, okay. All right.
You talk about a basketball character.
Okay.
And you know, I've always told you about these special people
the lifers
in sports.
That you never forget. Yeah.
I told you about Eggman, Butterman, Kenny Williamson, and these guys I met bouncing around the minors and you know the backs of buses and cheap hotel bars. Kevin Mackey, he has had his issues. He has been in rehab multiple times with all kinds of DUIs.
71 years old.
Yeah, and he was the famous Cleveland State coach. Remember the Mouse McFadden team that beat Bobby Knight? That was Kevin Mackey. Go back. There was a magazine profile from 1991, probably 92, written by Scott Rabb. And I don't remember if it was Esquire or GQ. I want to say it was Esquire. It's one of the two. It was a long-form piece about Kevin Mackey. But just a basketball genius. The only guy I've ever seen try to win an all-star game with lockdown defense. He was coaching against Cassie Russell. And he was
people go put the clamps on him out there.
He did it, and he had everything diagrammed because there were NBA guys there. This was his chance. In an all-star game. All-star game, he wanted to hold them to 70, and I'll be damned, they were pressing, trapping, switching from different man defenses to these hybrid illegal things. And it was a work of art, but it was an all-star game.
Yeah, one side that wasn't
the
playing.
only all-star game that ever happened for the Global Basketball Association.
Nice.
And it was 1992 in Saginaw, Michigan, and it was 20 damn degrees below zero, and the Saginaw mascot Sammy the Slammin' Salmon was missing dunks, and it was unlike in a barn that was 100 years old, and everybody's freezing.
Old-style basketball.
That's when Chuck Nevitt and Lorenzo Charles switched name tags, so they decided to go to the players' media party pretending to be the other guy, and nobody knew or cared.
Yeah, we don't care.
But just hearing Kevin Mackey absolutely warms my heart.
So what did we learn from this in other news?
You gotta stay off the street.
Yeah, if you're a brother on the south side, don't go outside this weekend. If you're a statue maker, don't make a statue that looks like a grown man handing his wang to a little boy.
Especially if it's a saint.
Right. And Manute Bol was 137 damn years old while he was in the NBA.
That has been in other news. That's Jason Goff. I'm Dan Bernstein, 312-644-6767. Don't go anywhere. Come on out to Scoreboards, Oswego. You might win some Bulls-Cavs tickets and a parking pass. Happy Thanksgiving. Hub at 5 on the Score.
That's why I don't read the newspaper.